All right, I will call the meeting to order. I have quorum present. So has anyone signed up to speak?
No.
No one has signed up to speak. So we'll move on to the annual meeting. The first item of business is election of officers. I emailed the board to ask if anyone else was interested in running for any of the positions other than the current slate. I did not ask the current slate if they were interested in reading their positions. So not having any volunteers, I would move that the current slate of officers be reelected for the next year, me as chair, Jeff as vice chair, and Andy as treasurer.
Second.
All right, any
Second.
any discussion? All right, hearing none. Do we need to call the roll?
We do not.
All right,
In
all in,
fact, we can adopt the elected slate by acclamation.
and how is that different than our, do we have to vote to acclaim ourselves? Is that the?
Just everyone yay or nay.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, by acclamation, we have new officers. And then the next item is the readoption of the remote virtual meeting policies. So is anything, were there changes in there were a couple of changes in the statute, right? Or did we do that already?
Right, we did that already.
Okay.
And so the purpose, and so we did that in, I think it was in August, maybe July, to comport with the statute. But what the statute does require is that this body has to review and readopt every year. And so as other bodies do, they'll do it at their annual meeting. So this, if we do it here, then this puts us on the cycle to continue doing it at each annual meeting. In terms of the remote participation policy and all virtual meeting policy, there are no changes, only adding the date of readoption.
All right, any questions or comments on that? Is there a motion to adopt the remote virtual meeting policy?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor? Aye. And actually, I forgot what I was supposed to do at the beginning of the meeting. We have a new member of the EDA, Steve Hood, who has joined us today. So I thought what we would do is we'll go around the room and everybody can do a quick introduction of themselves and what they're, for the board members, what they do in their non-board time, and then everybody else who's sitting around the table can introduce themselves. So I'm Don Long, I'm the chair of the EDA, and I am a business and transactional lawyer for Peck.
I'm Jeff Morrill, vice chair. I have businesses mostly in Boston, Massachusetts area, and mostly car dealerships, but some other stuff there.
My name is Andrea Johnson, and until Friday, I was the CEO of Vanderlinde Recycling. I have now taken that position with the Construction Demolition Recycling Association and National Association. So that will be, I have a couple weeks in between, and then I will be starting that in February.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm David Storm. I am a legal researcher, writer, and editor, but what I seem to be doing most of my time with is working with Scouting America, so formerly the Boy Scouts. So I have 6 different roles for them, from the Cub Scouts through district and fundraising.
Well, I'm the new guy. I'm Steve. So I came down here in 07 to be the commander of NJIC. If you're familiar with, is everybody familiar with NJIC?
Yeah, sure.
About a year later, all this construction began and all these people from DIA started showing up. So me and my counterpart, Phil Roberts, kind of, blanketed what was the defense structure here in Charlottesville. It wasn't much. We had to kind of, work congenially to get the DIA employees to move out of the DC area down here. So, so when I left the movie in 2009, the contractor building was up, the road building was up. If you guys are familiar with the structure at Ravenna Station. And so I've known Ann on the board of supervisors since about 08. And so she asked me to take the seat and kind of have some military expertise. So I'm glad to do it. I love it here. Glad to serve and help you guys or help us, this county, any way we can. So excited.
You're welcome and thank you
Sure.
for stepping forward once again.
Absolutely, yeah, sure.
Trevor Henry, Deputy County Executive, work with a portfolio of public safety and economic development.
Steve, welcome. I'm Jeff Richardson, County Executive. Welcome to this board and yes, sir. Thank
for
you.
what you do.
Yes, sir.
Beetle Pistol Curley, Board of Supervisors, liaison member to this board. And I represent the Rivanna District, which represents Rivanna Station.
Oh, okay.
Not that I'm, but I am.
Well, I get it. I go to Hannah Community Church, so. All right.
We do have a lot of Rivanna stuff
Yeah,
going on.
everywhere.
Yeah.
My name is Jeanette Ark. I'm on Emily's team in the Economic Development Office, and I'm the project manager for Rivanna Futures.
So you gotta pronounce it right too.
How do we say
It's like
it?
Rio Road.
Right. Is it
Rio Road.
Ravanna, or do we say Rivanna?
Well, people from Greene County kind of say Rivanna.
I'll get better.
This new cultural learning.
Oh, half of her name Shiflett, the other half of her name Ward.
That's true. I've heard that.
So Steve, welcome. I'm Richie Deloria and I'm an attorney with the Albemarle County Attorney's Office. I've been with them for 10 years and I've been assigned to represent this body,
Wow.
I think, a little over 5 years. That's an estimate, gross estimate.
Good enough. Emily Kilroy, I'm the director of the office.
Absolutely.
Hi, Steve. I'm Ashley Hernando Reina. I am Business Development Manager in the Economic Development Office, and I support the business retention and expansion function of our department. So supporting existing businesses to succeed in the county.
I bet you guys have seen a lot of change, right? When did you come?
I've been on board. I've held a couple positions in the department, but I've been on board for about 3.5 years now. But been in the county like you since about 2009. So it's a lot of different.
Old timer though, because I was 7, I don't,
07's before anything.
that was
before anything.
yeah. Yeah.
Welcome, Steve. We met in the hallway. Just
Old friends. We go way back.
We go way
We
back.
go way back.
I'm the deputy director for the economic development.
Awesome.
Avery Thompson, management analyst for the economic development office.
All right,
Great. Thanks for that.
sure. Thanks again for joining us.
No, pleasure. So far.
So the next item is the approval of the minutes. The only comment I had on the minutes was that meeting was a virtual meeting. So we just need to note that on the minutes. I don't know if anybody else had any comments. All right, is there a motion to approve the minutes with that change?
So moved.
Is there a second? Second. All right, all in favor?
Hi.
All right, next is the financial report.
Right, the only change, we had our new format here, but the only change that's worth noting is under expenditures and contributions, which is the Seville BioHub that we voted on. And you can see there was 100,000 went out for that. And then, of course, the main number that we need to that applies to us are the funds that are available to us for support initiatives. And that's going to be down there at the bottom, just under 1.39. And then Avery's going to go over the second page. This is on the tail end of what we discussed at the last meeting to get a better overview of where we're at with past projects.
Yes, thank you. So this secondary page is going to be another iteration of what we talked about before. So this is just going to show the performance agreements that we have currently. Last week, Director Johnson gave me some good feedback, so we're working to incorporate that. Part of that is naming the categories that's going to line up with what other localities might use when they're naming a report such as this. And then the other thing is adding the lifetime years or the time period to each one of the agreements as another column. So that this is just more of a overview snapshot that we can reference on every month that we come to this meeting, and not so much the nitty-gritty details of each one of these things. So if anybody has any other feedback right now, I'm open to it. I'll also resend this out to you guys to your email. And you're more than welcome to look it over the next few weeks and provide some more feedback that way as well.
Okay,
And I'll just say, I'm really excited that Avery, in a pretty short time, has been able to get a real strong grasp of the financials for both the office and the authority. So we're grateful for the work that he's doing.
all right, any questions or comments? All right. Is there a motion to adopt the financial statement now that we're finally, the financial report?
Motion to adopt the financial report.
Well, no, we haven't had one for a while, so I figured we'd adopt this one.
Fair enough.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. So, unfinished business, update on the Board of Supervisors, Economic Development Authority MOU. So where we are is, we asked Richie to start the first draft of that document. He prepared that draft. I've reviewed it. Emily's reviewed it, and we're gonna get together next week.
Before the week after, we're still landing it on the
Still
calendar.
within a 2 week.
Sure, so within a 2 week window, we
Before
will
the
get
next
together
meeting.
and discuss the changes, but I mean, at least based on my read, I don't think there's a lot. So we can anticipate that we would get a draft put together and then circulate it to the board to look at. This board to look at before our next meeting so that we can get any feedback, approve it, and then send it on to the Board of Supervisors to consider. Anything else?
I would just say that Richie did a really fantastic and quick job turning the term sheet into more of the legal form that we'd be used to in the MOU agreement. And actually Don and I are the reason that it's not quite ready for you all yet. So thanks to Richie for the work done there. And I think it's very reflective of the conversation that the board had when they had their review of the term sheet. So I expect that you all will not see anything in there that you weren't expecting.
All right, so on to new business. So I don't know who
And
is
we'll.
gonna do the introductions.
Yeah, so Maureen Kelly, the Director of Economic Development and Tourism for Nelson County is here. Maureen was here a couple of months ago to talk about the Go Virginia Wine study, that effort that she's been leading on behalf of the Region 9 region of which we're a part. And the final report from that effort was finished up late in 2024. But Maureen was here to sort of talk big picture what the recommendations and findings of that report were, and made an incredible effort to get the next phase going, which is an implementation grant through the same Go Virginia program. And so is here today to talk about what the scope of that implementation grant would be, and then bring a request for the EDA's consideration this evening.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, and thank you. And I'm proud to say that Go Virginia last week, so
Last
long
week.
ago, approved Rivanna futures, and also this is Region 9 Go Virginia board, and also the implementation grant to go forward to the state board for review and hopefully approval. So it was a good day. And so what I want to do very quickly is run through the slides that I'm sure you've received and reviewed. And then we can answer questions and talk a little bit about what we see happening next, because there's things already happening, which is exciting. Project overview. Goal is to get Virginia Wine, starting with Region 9, into the traded sector. And we spent, it was a year contract, we only had 8 months, but we worked very hard and very quickly to get all the partners, many of the
silos to open up and actually communicate with one another. And it was very exciting. So if nothing else were to happen, that level of communication and collaboration is a good start for our region and also for the state, because you could see state, Virginia Wineries Association, Wine Board, Virginia Wine Marketing Office, those are state bodies, and everyone is excited about this and the work that's been done through the planning grant. So the most important thing, it was a really good day for me when I met with Nikki Hastings from the Seaville BioHub, because my mind exploded and I was like, that coalition, that's what we need. And having learned, and she was like, don't do this. And so it's been very good and additive to watch their success and learn from how they really are catalyzing that particular industry sector. And we see the same kind of model for the wine industry. And it's so it's been exciting. The ambassador, and so it was funny, working with, you met Matthew Brown. He's all about wine and all about wine marketing. And it was really wonderful to watch him learn new words like economic development words. And I remember sitting in this room making a little list of Matthew's new vocabulary terms. And so it's been fun to take the economic development, workforce and all the things we do and say, you know what, let's soften it a little bit so that the businesses, the private sector can really wrap their heads. Because I remember the first time I was talking to a couple of winemakers like, cluster up. And I thought, oh, yeah, it's a thing. It's during the pandemic, someone asked me, we used to think you made up words like supply chain. And I was like, oh, okay. So this Virginia Wine Certificate Program is very important because it is going to educate people to move Virginia wine out of state. And we know that this works in places like California, Texas, believe it or not, Oregon and Washington, because those have been our models. But it's a real hard sell to tie it directly to export. And we've struggled with that because if California hasn't done that connection, if you will, that economic development connection, it's going to be really hard. We're going to be the leaders and do that in our certificate program. Go Virginia had a hard time with that. And so we wanted to move the project forward. And so we pulled the credential program from the Go Virginia ask. And we feel we're kind of sad, but we're also looking for other funding opportunities for that. And we really think that the body that owns that certificate program, they're gonna have something. It may land in the Department of Agriculture. We just don't know right now. We're just moving at the speed of light, which is what we need to do.
So that would be a program for people in Virginia or people in other places who would become a.
If you're familiar with WSET, which is an international wine certificate program, don't know what that acronym means, nothing. But the wine planning grant report is in their curriculum now, and we have been getting calls from all over the globe, directed at our wineries, winemakers, and others about how, this is really interesting. And so we feel that but the ambassador program would be targeted, and we want it to be accessible. We want it to be the price point to be accessible. And we're so we're talking about not just tasting room staff, but people, Somali restaurants, what's called off trade. Those not in the trade, but the retailers, the distributors, all those people who are going to get Virginia wine out of Virginia.
Okay.
We also see it as that sales force. And as we did a little bit of a deeper dive with the wineries and surveys and just conversations and things, the question was, quite frankly, if Avery were to become credentialed, would you pay him more? And the answer was, well, A, would you pay for it? And would you pay him more? And the answer across the board was yes. And the follow-up question was that, do you see yourselves adding sales staff? And we, in one of the average Virginia Wine Monthly does an annual survey, a salary survey. And so we pick kind of the midpoint based on Virginia, and it's a US publication. And it's not a bad salary starting. Usually it's commission based and all the things. So it's good. The primary initiatives, if you will, we really think that the customer discovery part of this process, implementation process, is critical, because what we've found is these wineries are in their own little space, and they don't really ask a lot of hard questions about how you really feel about their product. And that is reflected in their sales. We did a deep dive, if you remember, in the planning grant report, and the 3 tiers of good sales, and it actually tied directly back to that customer discovery. So who is your customer? Where are they coming from? And PS, how are you getting your product out of that tasting room? And what we also found during these discussions is there is a lot of wonderful, I hate to say this, underutilized resources in our area and statewide that businesses are just too darn busy to take advantage of. And for example, the Small Business Development Center, big fans. They do have a craft beverage person. Chris is wonderful. He's going to serve on the coalition, but they are very general principles and activities and resources. What we need, I'll just give you the best example. So does anyone in this room know how to depreciate a vine? Not me. And so, but there are folks in our area, businesses in our area, who do have the expertise. And so bringing them in and helping the businesses with these specific needs is going to increase their sales. And what we also know is that there is excess capacity in this industry. So, well, all the tools are in the toolbox. We have excess capacity. We have the ability to make more wine, because, that was one of the questions, was how much wine do we really have, and are we selling it? And the answer is yes. Most of these most of our wineries in this region are under 2,500 cases. And, you better get that special blend or whatever, because it's gone, which is a great problem to have, but not if you're trying to grow. So these business resources are extremely unique and, for unmet needs that none of it currently exists. And it's going to be a process to pull all this information together and, again, make it accessible to through not just membership organizations like Virginia Wineries Association or the Vineyards Association, but through the economic development professionals. We're going to have a whole new section of the toolbox that we can pull out and say, hey, this is what you need, or this is who you need to talk to, or this is where you need to go. So that's very important. We also found during our work that there's a lot of great workforce programs out there, but not a lot of collaboration, just not a lot of communication. And again, the wineries themselves are not aware of these resources. I mean, there's money for internships. There's all kinds of options available. And so this is a support function. We don't need to get into workforce. It's a whole nother job. So this is super important. Sustainability is critical if Virginia Wine is going to take it to the next level. We have the choice pretty much right now, because the industry is shrinking. It's just the way it is. In order to grow it, we're going to have to get into more sustainable practices and things like that. There is a group of winemakers. One is from, let's see, there are 3 gentlemen right now who are working on it, but they need support. And we see the coalition as supporting all of these efforts. And then this innovation section is actually BioHub driven, if you will. what we find with some of these winery organizations is that they just talk to themselves. They don't bring in experts from the outside to look at Virginia wine critically, and that very much needs to happen, again, in collaboration with so many agencies. So again, because it's Go Virginia Region 9, we are focused on Region 9 wineries, and there are 104-ish. We are bringing in Shenandoah Valley Winery, because the plan is to deploy this. We're going to bring in Region 8, which is Shenandoah Valley, Go Virginia Region 8 next time, and then deploy it statewide and at some level. And so you see this significant opportunities for growth, and we're going to do. And so we have 4 proposals due the 1st of February to the Virginia Wine Board. They are extremely excited about this. Someone asked, well, why isn't the Wine Board doing this? Well, the Wine Board, that's not what they do. They their funding is through the excise tax from wine sales, and then they give this money away to people who are going to implement projects that will forward Virginia wine. And Virginia Wine Marketing Office is thrilled about this. We have letters of support that say, we really want this coalition and these programs of work because we need to be supported. And it's same with Piedmont Virginia Community College. They are extremely excited about that. And news, Courtney Caucasian, Charlottesville Area Convention and Visitors Bureau Director, okay. She's been talking to PVCC for some time. Anyway, during this whole conversation last year, she mentioned it, and I was like, well, who are you talking to? And she said, Bid. And I said, huh? And so it was just a matter of a conversation, moving her in the right direction. They're talking about that curriculum. That is very exciting. And again, complements what's going on here. So we have, again, the go-ahead green light from the Go Virginia Region 9 Council, waiting for the states, March 11th. And then, but we are going to just go ahead and the coalition wants to meet in February. We're not going to say no, because we want them to continue the work that's been done. We've got a green light from PVCC to host it there, so there's no cost or anything like that. So the work continues, and the conversation continues, and that's the most important thing. My request from you today is that you continue to support this process with another $20,000. You did $20,000 for the planning grant, which was 1 year. This is a 2-year implementation process, and we have the match to do all this, the local match, and especially since our budget was reduced, minus the accreditation program, if you will. But we really feel it's important to have a good, strong cash match to demonstrate to the Go Virginia State Board that this is important to our region. So that is my questions.
You mentioned that there's a lot of resources out there now that a lot of these wineries are not using, not taking advantage of. What makes this different?
Those resources are more general so business planning is great, but when you're talking about a winery or a vineyard operation, this is very specific to that business. We have a letter from the Small Business Development Center that articulates that very, very well. Me, probably not so much.
We had someone at the Go Virginia Region 9 meeting to consider this grant proposal last week, share, could this be broadened to include the breweries and the cideries as well? And a vintner that was on the call shared that wine because of you have to harvest and process the grapes so quickly. Really has unique business challenges that would make a lot of the focused resources that they're trying to bring to bear here.
Beer's 40 days. You're really turning out this, you have one chance after harvest to put something in the multiple years. It's truly with vineyards and wineries, it's patient capital. Once you install that grape, 5 to 7 years for a real.
Maureen, would you say that it's cost prohibitive to hire enough staff to implement a lot of the strategies that
Yes.
are recommended or are available when you're under that type of
Yes,
timeline?
and we will be working with all the Small Business Development Center and all those agencies to sharing so that they can refer, or they can say, hey, you know, we can help you too. So we in no way, I won't duplicate efforts. I won't do it. And so this program is very, very unique and specific. It's very different than the California Wine Institute one. It's very different because Virginia is extremely different than other places.
So the money you're asking for, does that match something else? Is it part of, goes with other money that's coming in from other places? How does it fit into the next step? I just want to understand that a little better. That's all right,
It's
just generally.
So I think it was 255,000 was the total budget, and local match was.
If I can find the page.
Oh,
I've got the
Emily.
application up.
And Go Virginia's formula prescribes a certain amount of cash match. And oh wait, I have something here that might help. Let's see. Private sector support is 5,000. Oh, we've received another 6,100 since. And in kind from private sectors, 13,250 at this juncture. I don't have the cash stuff in here. I apologize because I wanted to very much emphasize the private sector led initiative. That is how the Charlottesville BioHub has been so successful, and that's the model. We believe strongly that the private sector should have skin in the game. They should, you know, be at the table the entire time. But what most people really don't understand is the margins for the wineries themselves are pretty thin. So we would be leaning on the retailers, the wholesalers, the suppliers, those people who benefit from the wineries' work and products. And we've got a couple letters of support from them saying yes. And one said, well, would you like a letters with a number? And I said, no, that's weird. And I don't think that's appropriate. And plus, I don't know if your number is big enough yet. So that's, yeah, so we fully expect, and again, we are looking at Department of Agriculture, because some of the recommendations, 11 of the 25 recommendations in the report are fundable from Go Virginia. The others are not because they are more marketing type. And so we are working with, again, the Virginia Wine Board, Virginia Wine Marketing Office, Virginia Tourism Corporation, Department of Agriculture has a couple of programs that we think will fit these funding. But the coalition and its work is key to moving all this other things forward.
And so, well, the $20,000 you're asking for, does that get you where you need to go to get the coalition? That's just the last piece? Or
It is.
there are other monies that you need to get in the door?
It is the last piece.
Emily, do you?
And there's approximately, I'm doing math on the fly, which is always dangerous, $16,000 in cash, combined cash from some of the other counties that are participating in the study. There's a request for $20,000 from Albemarle County, and then in-kind contributions, participation in the advisory committee that comprise the balance of the match. And the hope would be to bring down roughly $210,000. Is that the new budget number?
255.
255 from Go Virginia. So it'd be taking the local cash to leverage the state funds.
And is this a decision we need to make today in order to make this work?
It's January.
January.
So
We don't have it until March.
yeah, I think if the EDA was interested in bringing this back for action at your February meeting, there should be time in the process for that to be accommodated.
I think that's
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, another quick question. So for all the individual wineries, do they have to pay to be a member of the coalition, or are they just because they're in our region, they automatically are?
Yes.
How has that communication happened so that they know that this is going on? Because there's 100+ of them, you know, as well as the suppliers. How are you linking all this, you know, this knowledge to get it back to them as end users?
There, we have we've created a fairly sophisticated communication and response mechanism. And so, for example, well, I sent an update to the advisory board after the Go Virginia meeting, and after that, an email went out to the winery saying, hey, this is where we are. So we're communicating with them as well as the off-trade folks in real time. We want them to know exactly what's going on so that there are no unmet expectations and you know, people always have good ideas. Have you thought about this? What about this? We're always looking for feedback. We like feedback. That planning report went through about 15 iterations because we just kept collecting the feedback from specifically the winery, well, on the off trade too, to validate what is needed, what they really need. So it's specific.
Another follow-up question. How are you going to measure the success or failure, but how it's going?
The Go Virginia is really good about making you come up with metrics, outcomes. We count a lot, and it's good because it keeps you honest and in real time. Everything is reported at least quarterly to the Department of Housing and Community Development, which is the parent of Go Virginia. And again, there's a lot of reporting that goes on, and so it's and we're excited about that. In fact, we were told by Shannon Holland, the director of Go Virginia Region 9, not so many metrics, Maureen. And I was like, yeah, but we want to be able to track all this. And it's everything from jobs to sales, volume of sales. It's a great list, and getting folks to respond. So, you know, your winery owner, you're doing everything, and it's not a lot of fun. And then there's a survey that you have to fill out. We did this through the planning grant. Was our response rate was really good because we hadn't heard from Mr. Long. We would show up and say, let's go through this together. This is really good. This is important information. And we have all that baseline information. It's just, we want more. We want to know how to help you. And the only way we can do that is to ask questions and then communicate among those resources that either exist or don't exist, and create those.
Are the wineries asking for this help? I mean, just that phrase that Ronald Reagan made famous, that we're from the government, we're here to help.
Very much
Is there, like, so this is, in other words, there's a pull here from.
Very much so. And that's why the coalition is so private sector led, because they want this. They need the help, and that's really important because sometimes you don't know you need the help. And so if you know it and you're actually asking for it, because those are really hard words, I need help. And so, yes, we feel very strongly, and we know there's appetite from outside of Region 9 for this from other wineries. That's why we grabbed somebody from Shenandoah Valley, because he heard about it and he's like, I want to be in this. I said, well, you really can't say Shenandoah Valley very much, but yes, we want your perspective as well.
Giving a little bit of what Jeff said. So much of what these wineries have to do is federal government driven and state government driven, because not only is it just sort of the normal piece of the state government, but half of them use the state government as their distribution, right? The VWDC. So what's the plan for easing the state government burden on these wineries that will help them. Right, VWDC needs to do a better job of helping them get this out, and they're not really a full-blown distributor because they don't do the marketing, they don't have those sales reps. They don't have the people who are gonna necessarily want to get that certification to go out and sell Virginia wine as much. So how do we?
That was definitely a strong recommendation from the wineries. However, Go Virginia money cannot be used in any way, shape, or form to evaluate or help another state agency. So we're going outside of that, probably the private sector funding to figure that out. And we've got one of the best alcohol legal minds in the Commonwealth. She's an alcohol compliance attorney on the coalition. Her name is Mary Beth Williams. And Mary Beth has some good ideas already, but it's going to be a journey on that one because that's in some ways a sacred cow. In some ways, we've been told, you be careful over there. And yes, okay. But it again, it needs to be discussed. And it has never been discussed.
I got a new guy question. I guess we're going down there.
Well, we're going in whatever order, but it's now.
So in the idea of like other states, so I guess novice here, but California is probably the #1 producer
In
nationwide,
terms
right?
of, yes, volume.
And so I would say Virginia is like an emerging wine producer, right?
Mhm.
Have you had an opportunity to look around and see if there's any other emerging states that are kind of like your situation, and then any lessons learned that you could glean from them with how they advance
Yeah.
their cause?
We looked we looked at Oregon, Washington, and believe it or not, Texas.
Okay. Yeah,
My sister's in San Antonio. I'm like,
yeah, right.
don't be like that. And, but Texas has been very aggressive in the accreditation process, in the state marketing and things like that. There's a national competition that is annually held in Dallas. Okay, I just didn't, I never would have thought of that. But it's a
So you've learned stuff from other like
we
states.
do not want to reinvent the wheel or
Yeah.
duplicate efforts in any way, shape, or form. No one has time for that. We are at a critical juncture in the Virginia wine industry, and it's either going to be we are content with our tasting room sales, or we're going out of state, which is where we need to go. We already have some ideas. One of the recommendations is a retail location in Washington, DC. So on the phone with Joe Boatwright from the USDA, and we were going through some programs, and I was like, I like that one, I want that. And I said, well, wait, would that program fund a DC location for wine? And he was like, I like the way you think. So we're at least talking about that, because that is an amazing place. Those folks are coming to Virginia to enjoy Virginia wine. They should have the opportunity to buy it right there. So it's those sorts of things. And so we, the other state that we thought was a little more wine friendly, North Carolina, turns out not as much as we thought it was. So we've been really in the weeds during this planning grant, and it's paid dividends because we feel we're very focused. We feel we have the right recommendations, and there will be more moving forward because this is a journey.
Mr. Chair. I think Mr. Peter.
Oh,
Hi.
all right, we go around the room.
I am really excited about this because I've been working with a lot of, various wineries and such. And David mentioned something very important, which was distribution, state laws, distributors. We cannot get our wines into our local stores because of the distributors mark up the price, and then it becomes unaffordable for a lot of people. So that is a huge thing, when in reality, our wineries could distribute it themselves, could,
Right.
take it to the stores, Kroger, Costco, and places like that. But we're not allowed to do that because of the
The
distributors.
3-tier system
Yeah.
is
Yeah, so that's one, maybe something Go Virginia could work on. The other thing is, in most places, like in European countries, they produce their wine and that's what they sell in the locality. So here we're drinking California, Washington, everybody else's wine, but our own wine. So that's a problem right there, that we're not drinking enough of our own wines, which are now competing. And you may not know this, but there's a project, thinking, so it's in the thinking stage, but they want to have a contest, frankly, between Virginia wines and California wines, a double blind test, just like they did, years ago when, I can't say it, but when California beat that other country, because I'm half that other country, so I can't say that.
The
But Pardon?
Bevfluence, is that what you're talking about, that
Well,
competition?
when the California wines won over the French wines, which was like a knife through my heart, but that's okay. I mean, that's what, that's the way it is. But so they're talking about doing some kind of an event like that. So that would be very good.
Who's
Um,
talking about that?
A certain winery. I don't want to get
Oh,
into
a
details.
winery.
A winery. A winery is going to sponsor it. This contest between the two, a winery.
Because we're working with an organization called Bevfluence.
Okay.
And we're actually going to be have a booth at CiderCon in Chicago
Okay.
in whatever month that is. And we're allowed to bring Virginia product, not just cider, to that. And so they will have all kinds of, there's like a speakeasy one
Right.
evening where I'm not going, so that these
Sure.
buyers and the craft beverage aficionados
Right.
can see the depth and breadth of, and we're going outside Region 9 in some cases to make sure that Virginia wine is extremely well represented.
But this is more of a local Albemarle.
Right.
So our wines versus, and the wines in the region around
That's
Albemarle
great.
also. So that would be a contest there, a lot of publicity there. What would really help us a lot also is, right now, Albemarle County, we have farm wineries, so you don't have the restaurants with the wineries. And yet, in reality, if you think about it, that will cut down on drunk driving because you're eating and drinking and not, I'll give you an example, Jefferson Vineyard, when I went there, they serve oyster crackers. So if I do a flight and eat oyster crackers, I'm driving drunk because it doesn't take much, for me. But so to be able to, I'd love to have the support of the committee to be able to say, well, let's look at that, because there are some wineries that can have a quality restaurant. Not a lot, because it's going to take a lot of money. You want the acreage, you don't want to disturb the neighbors, things like that. But that's something that would really bring in business, because we're losing business to Early Mountain Vineyard. We're losing business to Palladio and Barboursville. Although that's a high-end restaurant and very good. So that was, and I'll give you a good example. There's a certain wineries, they served delicious raw oysters. Everybody loved their oysters. Albemarle County says, you can have those oysters. VDAC says, you can't have those oysters because you're a farm winery. So we're not helping ourselves. Some of our laws are not helping ourselves because I think we have a really booming industry. We're bringing in millions. The wine industry is bringing in millions, and it would just be nice to be able to help some, the wineries in general, and then some of them with, like I said.
And the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services is at the table, at the coalition table.
Okay.
So yeah, we feel very strongly that those agencies need to hear in real time what the needs are. But again, we understand that those kinds of fixes it's going to take a few minutes.
Did we get a copy of your slides emailed, or was it already emailed to?
We can send them.
Do that. Okay, that would be great.
So here's if we don't need to make a decision today, my suggestion agrees would be to just move the decision point to the next meeting. If anybody has, the questions, I need to read them. I certainly think, obviously Albemarle County has the majority of the wineries. Yeah.
45 of the 100.
All right, so not quite a majority, but close to half. So I think we should be doing what we need to do to support the wineries. So I certainly support that. I'd just like to understand a little better about the context. So here's what I would suggest is everybody look at the information. If there's any information that we need, we should get it from Maureen so that when we come to the meeting next time, we'll be ready to make a decision. Is that agreeable to everybody?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
If folks have questions that, if you send those to the staff, we can kind of interface with Maureen and that way we make sure everybody's got the same information.
Be great.
Thank you all so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
You made the planning grant happen.
Thanks, Maureen.
All right. Yeah, overview of the Broadway Blueprint Study.
Yeah. And JT, do you want to introduce?
Yeah, while David comes up, I think I'll just really quickly mention some of the breadcrumbs for this study. So meaning just some of the brief history. The county became interested in studying the Broadway Street corridor following the announcement by Willow Tree, which was a big tech company growing out of the city, considering other states. And the city worked with the county to redevelop the Woolen Mills site, which is at the end of Broadway Street, to retain this company and grow it. That announcement was for 12.3 million in capital investment and 200 jobs. So at the time, it was the largest economic development project the county had ever encountered. And the Broadway Street corridor at that time was a relatively quiet place. The Woolen Mills site had yet to be redeveloped, and the county was imagining the hundreds of employees that would be traveling down the corridor, what kind of impacts there would be on infrastructure. And so they committed to a study, a phase 1 study, looking at 3 different areas, which David will talk about in depth. But the county wanted to understand how they were going to, how economic vitality, connectivity, and placemaking could really be maximized as a result of this big investment and big project happening on the corridor. So phase 1, just like the wine study, just sort of looked at what was there and what the opportunities were. And then David, through the community development department, bravely led the phase 2 study to look at the implementation opportunities, which is what he's going to get into today. So the last thing I'll say is there's no ask here. This is all just for information so that the EDA is apprised of what the Broadway studies have yielded. And with that,
Welcome, David. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm David Benish, Development Process Manager with the Community Development Department. Thanks for having me. I'm going to try to give a reasonably brief overview. So I don't know how familiar you all are with the Broadway Street area. So I'm going to assume that there is some level of understanding of it, give you kind of an overview of what we tried to achieve within this study and what the study is calling. Is everyone generally familiar with the area? The Broadway corridor is sort of this county island surrounded by the city. And on the south is Moores Creek for the study area, and then east and north is the Rivanna River, East Market Street for a portion of mostly the railroad. And then on the west is Franklin Street. Franklin Street provides the primary access to the area on all of Franklin Street is in the city. Look at the wrong end. So the phase 2 study, as JT indicated, the recommendation of the phase 1 study was to undertake this phase 2 study to develop actionable implementation strategies that were focused in on these three focus areas, economic vitality, placemaking, and connectivity. At the time we did this study, we added a fourth land use. We call it land use and it was a focus area in and of itself, and it had significant impact on the other three as well. So there was a fourth focus area that was added in the study. The study created goals and expectations for each of those focus areas, and then strategies in the short term, 0 to 5 years, long term, 5 to 15 years, and then what was called integration strategies. And those integration strategies are really things that require collaboration with other entities or partners that the county can't fully control on its own. We hired 2 consultants to work on the project, 3TP Ventures out of Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Yay. But they have a local office here, and then Line and Grade Engineering. Engagement that we undertook for this study focused very heavily on getting input from the business community, the businesses there, the tenants, as well as the property owners. We did engage with the city's neighborhood development services, kept them informed of what we were working on throughout the process and the study. And they had opportunities and did provide us input and ideas and what we did. The board endorsed this study on September 4th, 2024. In that action, they referred the study to the Economic Development Office and Community Development Department for implementation. And as such, what that means is that the document will be used to help us work at in our work program, what projects we'll be working on in the future, at least in CDD. That's how we approach it. And it also provides a guide for us on decision-making regarding policy, projects, and proposals that we might see in the area. Again, at least our window of responsibility in community development, that's how we would anticipate using the document. So what do we hear from the stakeholders and the consultants regarding each of these focus areas? I'm going to kind of go through them here individually and just give you some highlights of what we heard, because that is what we heard led to the goals and the strategies that we came out of this study. For economic vitality, what we heard from the stakeholders is that continued affordability of land and space is vitally important to them. And Broadway corridor has historically provided relatively affordable space for startups and local artists, manufacturing and services. And there is a need and desire from those stakeholders and from our needed inventory to maintain that. While that's a desire, what has been happening in this area because of its location and other market-driven conditions, land costs are going up. So there is a concern that businesses may be priced out of this area. Along with that, the consultant reminded us of what we already know. Our industrial land use inventory is pretty weak and small in Albemarle County, and there's a need for more land generally for industrial type uses, but it adds to the importance of protecting this area, retaining it for this inventory in the meantime so we can expand our inventory. So what I'm going to do with each of these areas is sort of go through the goals. I believe the goals are as important as the strategies actually, because the goals set the picture for what we're trying to achieve in these focus areas. The strategies over time, as it takes time to develop, we need to change, and you need to measure how useful what the pros and cons of those strategies are, but you always look back to the goals for what you're trying to achieve. So I'm going to take a minute and kind of read through these so you understand that. What we are saying is important in these focus areas. And for land use and economic development, economic vitality, the economic vitality goal is to maintain Broadway as an affordable place for local startups, artisans, existing businesses, while continuing to encourage new creative industries within Broadway. And the land use goal is, in the near term, retain primacy of creative industries and light industrial land uses within Broadway, while also supporting complementary uses that bring vibrancy and activity to the area, especially during evening and weekend hours. Some of the businesses that are emerging in that area, the breweries are doing at a brewery, future beverage businesses too, as I understand. And that's an untapped opportunity. In terms of the strategies to implement that goal,
We'll get it there, David.
I think this thing might be going.
Yeah, he could put, we'll move it from here.
It's because the forward is not working. So the general focus of the strategies for that area, this focus area, is to retain industrial land use designations, zoning, and minimize competing land uses and zoning. There was some interest in fostering mixed-use development and residential development in the area, but there was a concern that that would create a competing market for the industrial land. So again, the focus is retaining those industrial lands. Improve zoning ordinances to allow flexibility and compatibility for different uses that can leverage other revenue streams for stakeholders, property owners and businesses, and to foster those off-hour uses. And then continue business retention is a theme that carried through the study. And long-term, just continue to monitor land use needs and market demands for this area. The connectivity focus area, what we heard from the stakeholders and from the consultants' analysis was that there's poor and unsafe pedestrian and bike access. And there's a need to maintain, at the same time, there's a need to maintain large vehicle truck access for industries. And that traffic and parking needs to be better managed, both the maintenance and also speeding. And that access and connections to other surrounding areas, Franklin Street and the city, were important. So that goal is to establish an integrated concept and vision for Broadway Street that unifies the adjacent land uses, maintains adequate access for light industrial uses, and invites pedestrians to walk, bike to destinations and landmarks along the corridor, while establishing an aesthetic quality and character that make the Broadway district unique and engaging. I'll do this in placemaking together and go through the overview strategies. So, placemaking, what we heard is that there are from both the stakeholders and the consultant is that there are opportunities in this area that and amenities and resources that need to be tapped into. That include the Ravenna River, Morris Creek, and the trails and open space that are associated with those, the Willow Mills Historic District, and the emerging arts and artisan community that is there, plus the brewery, possible future breweries, the cidery that has intentions to maybe open themselves up for visitation as well. There was also a note that there was also a lack of public space for events and markets and for the artisans that are there and some of the businesses to create some energy in the area by having those types of markets and open space available to provide that. And then a big one was the lack of awareness of visibility of the area. A lot of people have a hard time understanding where that is, what Broadway means. So the notion of wayfinding, signage, and branding of the area became an important concept that needed to be focused in on in placemaking. So the placemaking goal is to incorporate creative design elements and public space within Broadway that highlight the unique and creative character of Broadway, to elevate the area as a compelling destination for both business and people. Then, when you look at those goals together, you can look at the strategies. The strategies are kind of obvious for these areas, but they focus in on pedestrian and bike improvements along Broadway Street and East Market Street. And then looking at Marchant Street as a possible pedestrian connection and addressing some safety issues related. And again, the wayfinding plan and implementation, which includes branding efforts and signage design and installation.
Dave,
Just really quick, is, on the pedestrian bike, is that what you mean when you say infill development? Is that the same?
Now, infill really relates to better utility of some of the existing buildings and land. One of the things I didn't touch on, but it's a lot of one-story industrial type development, various setbacks related to zoning districts and such, kind of limit the opportunity to infill on the land site and infill them with the type of businesses that would be beneficial.
Thank you.
That's that term for infill.
Can I interrupt for just a second? I was gonna ask Jeff, does that kind of line up with the area in Asheville, the area on there wasn't an area on the French Broad that, I mean, it got flooded.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like that's sort of the same kind of area, is it?
I think so. I think it's a good comparison. Not long before I left, we landed a huge brewery that took over on an EPA contaminated site. They came in and they put their East Coast distribution center there. And the city put about $4 million in infrastructure investment in really a blighted area. And it flipped it immediately from some of the lowest return on investment property anywhere in the city to an area that was destined for economic investment. And the key was the investment of the brewery in that area. I think that's answering your question. And
Yeah, I mean, I guess I remember that at least, there were people, the artisans and a lot of the folks were down along the river and in those spaces. And I think, the fact that, as you mentioned, trying to keep it more affordable. As opposed to, building houses, which all of a sudden raises the cost in that particular area.
Yeah, I think there are some similarities. This is a much
Smaller,
smaller area,
yeah,
62 acres and 27, I forgot the number of buildings. It's like 27.
Yeah, definitely smaller, but that's kind of what it
It
reminds me
has
of.
a similar mix. I think in Asheville, from my experience there and looking into it, it has become a little more arts heavy.
Mhm.
Whereas we would see where this goes, but we certainly don't want to lose the garage door firm and
Right.
the other opportunity. The integration strategies, just real quickly, as I mentioned, these were separated out just because they require collaboration. We can't control that on our own. One of the ones that you all may be aware of that falls into this category is the Banner River Bridge Coordination. So that's one of the implementation strategies that is actually on the border of this area. And this area actually provides a great opportunity with the Morris Creek Trail, the Ravenna Trail, the potential bridge to be sort of a center of bike and trail opportunities and sort of a center for that kind of activity, which also could support that after hour type of businesses that could be within these buildings. One of the things that we heard from the stakeholders in the area that there is a perception that services to the area could be improved. Police service, utilities, road maintenance. Because this is again a county island around the city, VDOT has to come from literally several miles away to serve the area and maintain it. Police protection, police cars drive through it. County police have to borrow a little bit further away. So the notion is sort of talking about those opportunities to continue to improve and better the services in that area. It's part of the suggestion for this study. Franklin Street pedestrian improvements, or Franklin Street's in the city, so that requires city commitment. And again, Marchant Street is actually a road that goes from Broadway to East Market Street. It goes across the railroad tracks. It seems to have an opportunity for pedestrian crossings, but obviously that's a major safety issue. But pursuing those options to see if we can address it.
Whose railroad tracks are those,
CS, well,
CSX?
CSX.
Yeah.
So the study recommends a number of recommendations or strategies. We can go through these if you want. I've kind of hit the summary of all of these in that summary. I think just go to the next one. I think the origin of this request was just to get a simple update on a couple of them. So I'm using this table. These are some of the strategies that we are actually in some ways working on right now. And so the first one is to retain that industrial land use designation in our comp plan and zoning. That's sort of an ongoing policy, but we are in the throes of our comp plan update. We've incorporated those concepts, and we are continuing to maintain this area as an industrial mixed use corridor, flex type industrial use, not mixed residential. And we're actually designated it as a employment district within, which gives it some priority for infrastructure support and other things. Increased flexibility through zoning. This kind of touches on the issue of providing for better land uses to address better ability to use the land that's there, or those evening after hour activities that can provide a income stream to some of the property owners. We have a zoning ordinance rewrite that's is underway right now. It's a long-term project that is going to take a while. Its completion is probably expected in FY 25-26, but the recommendation in the study will be considered as part of that work. Broadway business retention, again, is a continuation of EDO's area reach. I'm going to skip the Broadway blueprint because I got one more or two more slides that we can go on and look at a little bit more.
Did I read that right? One bridge, a pedestrian bridge, 20 to 40 million.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and hit the last two before we go to that one. A lot of money. The Market Street bicycle and pedestrian plan. The study calls for pedestrian bike planning along East Market Street at the eastern end of the Wool Factory One Mill site. We as staff are kind of working on that as of right now, but actually the property owners along East Market Street, the residents and the Wool Factory owner are working together to try to figure out the traffic management issues there to kind of control access and speeding that's occurring at the end of that road. And if they get to an agreement and get some improvements in, it could be gates or bollards or lane controls, that will improve access for bikes and ped in that area. It's currently pretty dangerous. If you've been down there, it's a very narrow road. Speeds get pretty high when there's an event there. So some better traffic control may be worked out. That will benefit pedestrian and bike access there. The Ravenna River Pedestrian Bridge Project is one that's underway. JT might be able to speak to this better than me. He's a little more dialed in with the TJPDC's work. They're making application for a federal grant for a preliminary engineering study. That more enhanced engineering study may be able to help refine the cost estimates for this project. Because my understanding is because the geology is a little unknown in the engineering costs for spanning the river in that location. The VDOT estimates and the smart scale estimates are relatively high, and they're sort of worst case numbers. So this preliminary engineering study is really trying to get at that shocking 20.
Is there a slide that would show where that bridge would go?
We can go to the next slide. I'm not sure that.
Actually, it was in the.
That's not it, I assume.
Oh, that's for sure.
It was in there. It's.
We can go to the,
Sorry, it is on a slide that. It's right here. This, that Michael Baker International, diagram is showing the eastern anchor would be adjacent to the State Farm campus. On Van
Okay.
Towers. And then it would come across and land, right at the, Woolen Mill site.
Okay,
And so you can, if you're familiar, if you've been on the Old Mills Trail on the eastern side of the Rivanna River, you might be familiar with the steep topography coming up from the river to State
Yeah.
Farm to create an accessible pathway to get to that bridge would be quite a feat.
so that's part of the cost, is getting,
Yes,
yeah, it's not just the bridge itself.
No,
it's
that's
just
right.
getting down. Okay.
that's right. Since we're on this slide, I'll just quickly mention, I spoke about at the very beginning, Willow Tree considering other states. The completion of our bridge, the little bridge that was in one of the other pictures that connected the trail system, that was considered a real distinguishing factor for the company. Their employees had an expectation of being able to get out into nature on their lunch hour, and connecting the Rivanna Trail system with this bridge was the reason, one of the major reasons that they decided to stay here. So it's connectivity, it's placemaking, but it has a strong tie to economic development for businesses that have choice, where they could go anywhere, but they're seeking the kinds of amenities that would really allow them to attract the talent that they need to be successful. That bridge.
That's the bridge.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the bridge that's currently in existence.
That's the current bridge. Approximately $1 million.
so last project that's speaking with a little bit more depth on, not much more on that, is striping of Broadway Street to improve pedestrian bike access. And that's part of a larger project to upgrade the water line in the Broadway Street corridor. Old line there that needs to be upgraded, it's being done. The work will start March 2025 and will be done in July this year. Related to that, because the line is in the road needs to be resurfaced. That creates an opportunity for us to stripe the road. It's currently not striped. The consultant being made aware of that project saw that there was a low-cost opportunity to improve pedestrian and bike access without a lot of capital costs. And at the same time, also addressing one of the other important issues in this area is allowing tractor trailers to serve the businesses and industries in the area. They need that big width of roadway to be able to move the trucks around. So curb and gutter and sidewalk are probably not a good option there. So in the short term, it's simple striping, so it looks like bike lanes. Hopefully with some pedestrian striping and markers on it, it'll create a visual separation between the pedestrian bike area and the traffic, while also allowing the tractor trailers to negotiate in there and continue to support the industries. Also, from time to time, there are events we understand where there's parking on the street, and this provides sort of for an impromptu parking area that it being marked. It had VDOT approval, it has been funded. This is only $21,000. I think that's a lot for striping, but I guess that's pretty okay.
You pay $40 for a bridge, that's
The speed limits with people walking and no lights, are those all lowered for if people are walking along that roadway?
One of the things that we're going to be looking into is speed limits. We understand that road doesn't have a speed limit. I think it's, but that is something that's That's sort of the next step in the traffic management process. It's a road that actually doesn't even have a road category. It's so out there in the VDOT system. They know it's there. They maintain it when needed, but it's not even categorized as a arterial. It's just.
I don't know if other people have any questions. I guess mine would be mostly a comment. I think I appreciate you sharing all this information. I didn't see too much based on kind of where we are that we could do. I think what I would do is say to you and to the staff that as opportunities arise that we can use some of our special powers to help with projects there, I think it would be a great opportunity to do that.
I think it's a great opportunity. My kids go down there to the Cypher and all those places down there. So I know that it's, especially with a lot of the younger people, it's really happening in the area. And so I think to be able to develop that is only in the benefit of the community.
We might be aware though that this would be, it's like that gentrification, the nicer you make a place.
Right.
Like the more you put like the affordability, we're gonna compromise the affordability for the businesses that, or the artisans there that don't have, that can't pay the rent. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that, and I think that when you can, improve a community, improve a neighborhood, nothing wrong with that. It's just, we should know what we're doing if we're doing that we might not be able to accomplish everything on that list of goals because they might be working at cross purposes. It could be really cool, but if it's really cool, everybody's gonna want to be there, which makes prices go up.
But it also means that more people go to those businesses and they're generating more revenue if more people are knocking on their doors and going to, and they have access to those businesses and are able to get down there, so.
And that's the balance the consultant was trying to work through is, and we heard it from the stakeholders, a lot of the stakeholders there, owners and tenants just said, leave us. alone."
We don't want your help.
There are some things that we do need some help with, and I think that's the approach that the consultant tried to take is helping with revenue streams so that they can get more money out of their building after hours and without, gentrifying the area, it's tough to do. This area is in a very tough area because in terms of fighting the eventual market, because it's just so close to these amenities, so close to downtown. How far we can fight off that market to keep the prices down, it's going to be tough. And the consultant actually acknowledges that in their long-term recommendations. We need to continue to monitor what the market inevitabilities are, but to now to really kind of fight to keep it from gentrifying.
I also think we have an opportunity there to sort of have this office market itself to the businesses that are already there.
Absolutely, yes, we definitely see this as an opportunity to reinvigorate our relationship with a lot of the businesses in that area.
A neighbor owns a business in that area, and I'm not sure he's even aware.
Well, by all means, please, by all means,
I'd be
please.
happy
yeah.
to send him, right? So
That'd be
it's, he does the malting, right? So Murphy and Ruby.
Oh, I just visited with them a few weeks ago, yeah.
So
Perfect.
So he does
Yeah.
now.
So he does now.
He's older.
I'm talking about this year, so.
Right.
So it's the
He's
two
doing great.
outside
He's in the
from
loop.
here. No, but that's good. So
Thanks.
I remember when he launched and just
Yeah,
some of the struggles he had
for
and
sure.
and just trying to be able to grow. And he's been very successful there, but some of what we're talking about here would impact him, increased rents and those types of things, because what he does it doesn't need to be
It's
out
not
in
a
the country,
traffic scenario, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have a ton of traffic,
Right,
but he does need those bigger trucks that come through.
for sure.
But just not just his business, but all the rest of the businesses there to try and, grow them and keep them. And from what I read, though, it sounds like there's a lot of land that's not, I won't say highest and best use, but a lot of surface parking, a lot of places where between the combination of zoning and the comprehensive plan, we get those aligned. We can allow for a little bit better use of that light industrial nature that we don't really have enough of in the county.
Yeah, less wasted land on setbacks and parking requirements that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
Allowing for verticality and allowing for those secondary uses in the evening so that basement or ground floor can be used, you can get return on it for 18 hours a day and not just 8.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity here. And it's an exciting time.
And on that note, if any of you are aware of businesses that do desire support or just want to have a relationship striked up, developed, yeah. Please, send them our way, obviously.
It's nice to see the infrastructure investment too. It's good stuff because, it's not fun. But, well, look at Richmond, when the pipes and everything are not working, it's a problem. So, I mean, that's money well spent. So well done.
Any other questions for David? All right,
Thank you.
thanks.
Thanks,
David.
Sorry for messing up, Jay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, staff report.
All right, we will go swiftly, I promise. Welcome, Director Hood. The statement of economic interest forms, you all should have received a copy of those from the clerk's office early January. Those are due back to the clerk on February 3rd by 5 p.m. That is required as part of your service on the Economic Development Authority. It's a requirement under the state code. So it's, I did mine over the weekend. You can do it. But it takes some effort. So if you haven't looked at it, please take a look at it and just make a plan for getting that filed on time.
And there is almost no flexibility in terms of being late. So if you were late,
$250 fine if you're late, and the Commonwealth's attorney says there's no flexibility.
so no flexibility, get it in on time. And when you do it, save it so that next year it's easy to fill out.
Yes, I think the form stays fairly static year to year, so. That's a good segue to the next one, EDA email update. So we had talked in the fall about a transition of the EDA director emails. As Director Hood is probably acutely aware, the landscape of cybersecurity is ever shifting. The IT has since we sort of talked through what we were going to do for the EDA director emails, there's been sort of a new understanding of cybersecurity threats around email forwarding, which was how we were going to handle that. And so the IT department has requested that we sort of leave things as they are for a little bit longer. They have a new solution identified. And once we're certain that that's what we're going to do, I'll provide an update to you all. But just wanted to let you know that if you've been relying on the forwarding taking effect as we had planned, that won't be happening. But I think we've got a good solution. And I'm sorry for the delay on that. I'm going to turn it over to JT to talk about the strategic plan.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Spent just a couple minutes to inform the EDA that our kickoff to updating our strategic plan is starting this week. There's a stakeholder committee of which Supervisor Lapiso Kirtley and Chair Long are participating and representing the EDA's interest on that will meet with a consultant that we've hired from a firm called Resonance. This is the same consultant that updated the city's strategic plan last year, which is a really good strategic plan. I'd encourage you to take a look at it if you ever did have a chance. But Emily and I have met with Stephen Pedigo several times in the lead up to this Thursday's virtual meeting with the stakeholder committee. He's really excited to get here at least a couple of times throughout the update process and meet folks and get to hear their voices for this process. He is a dean at the UT Austin at the Lyndon Johnson School of Public Affairs. So brings a really cool perspective, has done plans for a lot of major cities and other municipalities around the country. I wanted to talk really briefly about 4 phases of work that the update process will include. There's this arrow indicating both directions, just to say that this is not intended to be like a linear process, but this will all kind of be happening simultaneously. So there's the strategy development and kickoff that I mentioned this Thursday. He and Stephen and his research associates have already started a benchmarking analysis of 10 peer localities, looking deeply at our target industries, which is something that people often ask us about. Do we have the right targets? What's the data that supports them as our right target? Between now and summer, there will be lots of opportunities for partner engagement. There'll be roundtable discussions, things that are in person, things that are virtual. There'll be an online survey. There'll be a web page that people can visit and get more background information, as well as the latest information about the process. And then it leads into, looks like we have some. It's like we are in a, no, there it is. Some of the other touch points. Project Enable, our existing strategic plan, has served us well, but it's time for us to move on. I'm expecting that this new plan will, may include things like we heard from David in terms of placemaking and some of the things that employers of choice really value in terms of trying to attract the talent that they need. I expect it will be shorter than Project Enable. There'll probably be fewer goals. I think Project Enable has 7 goals and 70+ objectives. So it will hopefully allow us to get a little more focused in what we're doing. And certainly Rivanna Futures is, a huge project and will be a big focus, I think, of what we see in the plan. So are there any questions about the beginning of the strategic plan update? If not, I can
All
turn
right.
it back down.
Speaking of Rivanna Futures, we've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes to get ready for the grants and the funding requests that we have into the state right now. And so the first step was to make sure that our outside faces were ready. So we revamped the webpage that we have for Rivanna Futures. There's we'll send a link as part of the follow-up for the meeting, but there's a new drone, a video that has some drone footage that was permitted. Yeah, so it kind of takes you through the property and kind of overlay some of the language around what we're hoping to build out there. And some of the key documents that we've been developing over the past 12 months are on there. So that was sort of in prep to make sure that we're in a good position as we're communicating with different entities of the state as we seek funding for the site readiness work that we've been working so hard towards. So there are 3 funding requests kind of all happening in parallel. Maureen mentioned the Go Virginia Region 9 process. Her grant application was submitted at the December 11th due date. That was also the same process that we submitted ours for. The Go Virginia funding, if it was awarded, would fund a lot of the design work that we would need to be ready to do site construction if we were successful in getting at the bottom in the blue, the Virginia Business Ready Sites Program funding from the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, which is the state EDA, Economic Development Agency. The Go Virginia funding is a little over $600,000. We'll find out about that on March 11th. We were approved by the regions. Once you're approved by your region, you go up to the state council for final approval. And so we'll be working with the Region 9 staff to get ready for the state process that's happening over the next several weeks. At the same time, our Virginia Business Ready Sites Program grant was due January the 8th. Thank you, Jeanette, for all of the hard work to get us ready for that. It's a very complicated application process with a lot of attachments. I think it's like 300 pages if you were to print it out, which we would never because that's a lot of paper. That program is a little bit of another iterative process. So we'll know more in the March, April timeframe, and we'll have a final decision from them sometime in June. And we're hopeful that we'll be able to be successful for some grant funding from them. And then also as part of the General Assembly.
So the the Site Ready program, that's the same program that North Fork used for their.
Yes,
site.
for the Site 8 up at North Fork.
Good job.
And then the state budget, we've also requested funds from the state budget. There's a benefit to getting state budget direct line funding. Grant programs are wonderful and they fund the things that they were designed to fund. There are things that you can't use, that you can't apply to fund with the Virginia Business Ready Sites program that we need to do in order to make this project successful. The most obvious one is VBRSP does not fund road construction. And for us to be able to have access deeper into the property that we purchased, we would need a road to be part of that. And so we're hoping that we'll be successful in attracting some state budget dollars that'll help give us just a little bit of flexibility in thinking about the development work more comprehensively than more piecemeal. And so I think the next slide has the budget. We had a budget amendment request submitted from Senator Deeds and from Delegate Loffer. So on both sides of the General Assembly have a bill under consideration, and we'll be working over the next several weeks to answer questions, make ourselves available to members of the General Assembly, and share information to hopefully help share what we believe is truly a Commonwealth wide opportunity that is located in Albemarle County. Just a couple announcements. This body supported an application that the name has changed several times. So you may not recognize this one, but the Seville BioHub submitted an application to Go Virginia probably about a year ago to start a wet lab accelerator, which you all agreed to support with $100,000 a year for the 3-year pilot. So for a total of $300,000. It was the largest project that Go Virginia has awarded. And so it was a little bit, it took a little bit longer to work its way through the process, but was officially announced a couple weeks ago. They'll be having a ribbon cutting event in February, and we'll make sure that we share that information with you all. The full project budget is over $7 million. And the goal would be to work with anywhere between 12 and 20 companies over the 3-year pilot to help provide inexpensive wet lab space, which is hard to come by, as well as a lot of support services. So to help put startup companies in a position to do their own fundraising and hopefully continue to grow and hopefully here. And so the goal is to really create a physical location for the biotech industry to live at. And again, the location for that is up at the North Fork Discovery Park. The UVA Foundation is supporting the cost of a lease as part of that pilot program. A couple of upcoming events to just put on your radar. On Thursday, a number of local economic development folks will be presenting at an event that the Defense Affairs Committee of the Charlottesville Regional Chamber of Commerce has organized on this idea of a burgeoning innovation corridor that's happening that kind of connects Greene County, Albemarle, and the city of Charlottesville, and a bit beyond. A lot of interest lately in national security and intelligence, but there's also a really great biotech story too, and we don't want to lose one for the other. And so we're sort of talking about them together more intentionally. There's been a request to make a presentation similar to that to this body in February. And so if you can't make that one, we're hoping to bring that here as well. Speaking of Seville BioHub is hosting their second Device and Tech Expo on January 30th. It's from 4 to 7, also up at North Fork. And that's a great opportunity to just shake hands and meet some of the entrepreneurs in our community and get a better sense of what some of the biotech companies are actually doing. The more I learn about biotech, the more I appreciate how diverse applications can be. You can have software companies, you can have folks who are really making physical products and therapies. And so the range can be pretty impressive. And that event is open to anyone that would like to register.
What's the date on that again?
It is January 30th.
I'm happy to share the information too.
Yeah, we can put that in the wrap up.
So the 30th, it was just sort of hanging out there in the middle. Okay.
Oh, yeah, it's okay.
We could get everyone to use the same format. And then one of the goals in Project Enable is around the tourism sector. The Charlottesville, Albemarle Convention and Visitors Bureau is having a Tourism for All training and recognition program on February 11th from 9 to 3:30 at Highland. And is a bit of learning, a bit of recognition and celebration. And the Tourism for All initiative is really about having an inclusive tourism experience for everyone that comes to our community. I'll take the next one. Just a quick where we've been this month on business retention and expansion. You can see we've had a couple more biotechs than we've had in recent months here, and continue our focus on the defense and intelligence sector, as well as some agribusiness activity. This is a slide that Chair Long asked if I could try to put together. I don't know that he's impressed. But this tries to just sort of set out, there's a lot of planning happening in the county right now. There's always a lot of planning happening in the county. This tries to sort of take the bigger items and show how they kind of work together. So AC 44 is the name for the comprehensive plan update that's underway. That process was kicked off, I want to say in 2022, and we expect we'll wrap sometime this calendar year. One of the key chapters as it relates to the work of the EDA is the Thriving Economy chapter. That's still being drafted. It is expected to be in front of the Planning Commission at the end of February and then in front of the board. They're hoping for sometime in March. When we have dates, we will share those with you all, as well as a draft. But our office has been engaged in the Thriving Economy chapter. And then, from the MOU work that we've been doing with the board, that there's a lot of focus in the current MOU on development area versus rural area. And so we've also been engaged with the staff on the development area chapter as well.
You got a question.
Yeah.
How does AC 44 compare to the strategic plan?
Yeah, so the comp plan is a 20-year vision for the county, and it covers a wide range of areas. It's primarily driven around land use, but it also includes the economy chapter. Talks about conservation efforts of the county, placemaking, amenities, service expectations around police and fire, public safety type items. And so it's sort of all encompassing of the things that local government does. And it's a 20-year document. So it's looking to sort of the next generation out. What do we want to be? It's updated every 5-ish years, and what that looks like is a little bit different. So sometimes the board will create a new chapter, a master plan for a specific area of the county. Sometimes it'll be a full comprehensive plan update where they'll kind of take the whole document and take a deep look. The last comprehensive plan amendment was done in 2015. And so here we are roughly 10 years later, getting ready to adopt the next 20-year vision. And so you don't wait 20 years to revise the comp plan. And it's a great way to kind of take that long range look at where the county should go. That is then thought of kind of in 5-year increments. So the county's strategic plan is a 5-year document that sort of says, here's the roadmap. Here's the first chunk of the comp plan that we can take. And we're going to commit to, goals and objectives and actions to get us down the road on where we're going. I'm going to skip down to the annual budget. The comp plan, the county strategic plan, then really drives how staff approaches budgeting and works with the board on developing the annual budget. And that's really, what's the 1-year work plan to advance the 5-year strategic plan that's going to get us down the road on that comp plan. The county strategic plan is all encompassing, so it's all local government work. The economic development strategic plan is really a focused look at the economy and how we'll focus there. The way that the approach for the Thriving Economy chapter is lining up is to have some land use related economic development type items in the comp plan. And then really take the strategy and sort of have a call out to read the county's economic development strategic plan to understand the strategy that we're using over the next 5 years. And so that gives us a nimbleness as we work through the economic development strategic plan process to not have to go through the full comp plan amendment process. So it lets us kind of be a little bit more reactive to the world around us. So if there were to be another pandemic, we might say we need a whole new economic development strategic plan. So we're just going to put this one on ice, figure out what's a quick, rapid fire way to respond to this challenge that we're facing, and not be kind of stuck in, well, the comp plan was adopted by the board of supervisors, and it's this whole process to kind of change what's in there. And so that's the current thinking on how that Thriving Economy chapter will come together. And then the MOU is an agreement between the Board of Supervisors and the Economic Development Authority on how, sort of the roles and responsibilities. How are we going to get this done together? The board appoints the Economic Development Authority members. And so I think it's also a nice way for the board to articulate, here's where your focus should be, and here are the tools that we're hoping that you'll use to get us there. I don't know if that's still clear as mud, but.
Well, I think it's really helpful to sort of see the different pieces, because, and the part that I was looking for is really sort of where we are, or where the economic development piece of each of those things is in terms of the development. But I think this helps everybody understand what the different areas that we are. And then I think what would be useful is maybe just as, something like what Avery has done with the performance grant, just something that says, hey, for each of these things, here's what's kind of coming up in terms of the next steps that people are aware of. I don't think we need to spend time talking about it unless somebody wants to, but just say, oh, we're now getting to whatever, the Board of Supervisors is going to consider some part of the strategic plan. So people are just aware of it as we go through, since there is so much that impacts the work that we're doing.
Yeah, great. I can follow up with that.
Yet another
Reminder
reminder.
again.
It's more important.
And I think that's it.
All right. Any other matters anybody wants to bring up? Questions? All right. Thanks, everybody. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks so much.